gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages, have you ever wondered how strong Radahn really was? Well, if his weapons are any indication, he could defeat the Elden Beast with barely any effort required. This right here is the Lion Greatbow, one of the remembrance weapons of Radahn himself. And like the vast majority of ranged weapons in Elden Ring, it has been mostly ignored by the player base as a whole. Don't get me wrong, Timothy, I see you there with your bow. I'm just saying that nearly everyone has ignored it. Not you, you're special. In any case, what you are seeing now is exactly what you have been missing if you don't try out ranged weapons in this game, and very specifically if you don't try out this ranged weapon. And of course, it is also built up to the maximum of what it can accomplish, managing upwards of 4,200 damage per volley depending on the enemy's resistances. And in my opinion, this is the strongest build in the entire game against a large enemy, by which I mean anything big enough and wide enough to actually take the entire volley to actually be hit for 4,200 per button press, because the range that you can fire it from is literally the limit of targeting range in the game, all thanks to the fact that it is based around arrows and arrow mechanics, rather than being based around magic like the gravity that it is coded in. In fact, even though it is coded in magic, this attack does no magic damage at all physical, and while that cuts out some potential buffage going on, I honestly think that's totally okay given the results we're getting here anyways. Yes, there are weapons that can do more damage than this in a single input, but none of those weapons can do it from the safe distance that this weapon can do, and this is what makes it sort of insane to me, especially against the larger creatures that it excels with. Against small and medium-sized enemies, it definitely does alright, but there comes a point where, especially against something that is even somewhat mobile, you'll just hit for more damage with a regular arrow shot than the Ash of War, which is the type of thing that this starts to struggle against. It isn't bad by any means, but it is far from its absolute height, which it only truly reaches against the exceptionally largest enemies in the game, which again includes the final boss, one of the toughest challenges in the whole game according to some people. Against the properly tiny enemies though,
put down that bow and arrow, you idiot!
This is somehow simultaneously one of the simplest builds and one of the strongest builds that I have ever personally presented to you, because there are just so few pieces required to make it actually work. But again, against the right enemies, it just shreds them. Even in PvP, this build is surprisingly good. The general arrow shots do a ton of damage by themselves, and while it can be incredibly hard to hit someone with the arrow rain, you can use this mechanic to play mind games with your opponent and force them to slip up, allowing you to get a shot off on them. And of course, in the rare situation that someone gets too impatient and rushes you when an arrow rain is already going off, they're just dead. This thing basically requires your opponent to make a mistake for you to take advantage of it, but the power of it when used defensively should not be understated. If you just hold your position, you can make someone's life incredibly hard, especially because if you free aim the Ash of War, it goes just over your own head instead of your enemies, so you can really play a sort of back and forth game where they never know if the rain is going to hit them or if it is planned to catch them when they get aggressive with you. It really messes with people's head, and I enjoy that quite a bit, to be honest. And so this build makes Radahn's weapons actually feel like they match the story of his personal greatness, a nearly undefeatable demigod by anything except a literal mind-destroying poison, and this weapon belonged to him. If he wanted to, I firmly believe that Radahn could have taken over the whole damn planet, but he wasn't that type of guy.
What a bunch of hippy-dippy baloney.
If you are that type of person though, and as the main character we sort of are by lore, honestly, then maybe you should give this weapon a spin. So what makes it function exactly the way that it does here then? Well, of course the Lion Greatbow itself is a main factor, especially as it has a nice little hidden bonus 20% damage when you fire the Radahn Spear ammo while using it, which is the ammo that you can buy from the Twin Maiden Husks in the Round Table Hold after killing Radahn. That 20% bonus applies to the weapon skill as well, of course. We also use the Shard of Alexander Talisman for a 15% bonus to weapon skill damage in general. To get this talisman for yourself, you need to complete the relatively short Alexander questline, which starts in the desert after defeating Radahn and ends near the Dragon Temple Lift in crumbling Farum Azula after defeating the Godskin Duo boss. As this is a bow, and the weapon skill takes on the effect of the arrows used to fire it, we also get the significant advantage of being able to use both of the bow-based talismans. Firstly, the Arrow's Sting Talisman raises all arrow attack power by 10%, and this directly translates to the damage of the skill as well, as each hit counts as an individual arrow. To get this one for yourself, you'll need to go to the impassable Great Bridge Site of Grace in southern Caelid, and then look beside you to the large tower structure that is there. Climb up the two ladders that are on it, carefully not to get knocked off by these soldiers that are waiting, and in a chest in the back right corner will lay the prize that you seek. Then we of course have the other bow and arrow talisman, Arrow's Reach. This one increases the effective range of bows as a whole, as well as some spells for some reason, but that aside, yeah, it affects this specific ability, and it affects it incredibly well. The base range of the ability isn't bad by any means, but with this talisman on, your range is literally as far as you can target an enemy, and for something that does this much damage to massive enemies, that means you can feel like a full-on dragon hunter, prepared for exactly that purpose, fighting from a distance that actually makes sense against something of that size in that situation, and I absolutely adore that. To get this one for yourself, head to the bridge above the gate front site of Grace, accessed easily from the western side up the hill, and then in here, guarded by some soldiers, is another chest, this time containing the Arrow's Reach talisman. And in our final talisman slot, you sort of have free reign to do what you want with it. There is nothing necessarily perfect, but given that we have organized this in a way that we can fire off our volley of arrows from literal maximum range in the game, I have gone with the Ritual Sword Talisman, which boosts your damage by 10% when you are at full health. In a melee build, this can be incredibly hard to maintain, and even on most ranged builds, it does get easier, but not anywhere close to as easy as this one does, in my opinion. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that because we will be at maximum health and maximum range most of the time anyways, we may as well use our final slot to make that really worth it. This one is found after killing the boss down these stairs in the Lux Ruins located in the Altus Plateau. Aside from this, you have your bog standard buffing incantations because this does fully physical damage, and you need any weightless seal to be able to cast them. Whether you have the stats to use it properly or not doesn't really matter, as that only lowers your incantation scaling, which has no effect on buffs at all. The incantations that we use then are Golden Vow, which increases your attack and defense a good amount for 80 seconds after casting it. This one is found in the Corpse Stench Shack on the eastern side of Mount Gelmir. And the other one is of course Flame Grant Me Strength for a 20% boost to physical and fire damage for 30 seconds after casting. This one is found behind Fort Gale between a couple of flame wagons in western Caelid. As for your Wondrous Flask mixtures, those are entirely up to you, realistically, situationally, based on what you are fighting. Nothing at all in that grouping of options actually increases our damage at all, so it is a choice between every one of the utility options for you to make when you sit down to fight an enemy. For stats then, you want to try and hit 60 Vigor generally in every build that you use, 80 Strength, anywhere up to 60 Dexterity as the weapon scales secondarily with Dexterity, though the Ash of War is almost completely Strength based, 25 Faith to use both of our incantations, and then enough Endurance to wield the bow alongside your armor set of choice. Personally, I've gone for the Radon chest and legs with one slight alteration.
Knock it!
And then of course any remaining points into Mind to fuel your ability to launch off as many volleys of arrows as possible before needing to drink a flask. And that just about does it. An incredibly simple yet particularly strong build. Yes, it is less effective against normal sized enemies, but it isn't necessarily bad even then. And if you bring it against something gigantic, that's when it just absolutely wipes the floor with them. No questions asked, no danger really involved in the first place. I hope you all like this build as much as I enjoyed using it, and I hope you're ready to become Radon yourself. Now someone get me my Leonard! Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.